Hey guys, my name is Anthony, and in today's video we're going to be talking over the final round of WOR at Abu Dhabi. So for this one, I wanted to try and get a better result than we did at Brazil. Brazil is a weak track for me, but Abu Dhabi is even worse. So I definitely wanted to try and get as good as a position as we can for this final race and just really end this season on a high note. So I actually started practicing for this one a little bit earlier than I usually would. Usually I'd start practicing on the Monday, and then obviously Tuesday is when we do our races in tier 3, but for this one I actually started practicing on Saturday, and on Saturday the car felt really good. We felt really quick in quali, very confident, and then the races where we had strong pace, but after that we just lost it really. The setup felt different going into practice on Monday, and we just couldn't recover that same speed that we had in the previous practice session. So as we move on to our final lap now, because we actually invalidated all the other ones, this was it. We had to try and get as best as a time as we could from this lap so that we can at least qualify somewhere instead of being at the back. I didn't want to start at the back because I knew it was going to be very difficult for me to really get past some people if we were starting towards the back. And you can see we're just taking it very cautiously. We're only roughly 0.3 of a second up on our time going into the chicane, but we do end up locking up, which loses us quite a bit of time. And coming out of the chicane, we just didn't get on the throttle quick enough, and we're now just losing a lot of time, and we're almost 0.1 of a second down on our previous invalidated lap, which I do believe was a mid 33, which is very slow. My PB going into this was a 32.7, and there were some people who were getting some really competitive times in our tier during practice, but obviously I knew they weren't going to be able to do that unless they got a really solid lap in the actual session, because it's very hard to really hook a lap up around here. So as we come up to the final couple of corners now, you can see sector 3 was definitely our weakest sector, because we get a decent run through sector 3, and even though we were a 10th down going into it, at the final corner we're almost 0.3 up. So even with 0.3 up, we cross the line and we only do a 33.3, which is very disappointing. Honestly, I would have liked to at least get a 33 flat, which would have put us within the top 5. However, we were at the top 5 at the time, and then we moved down to P7 after people improved. And as you can see, in P8 behind us is Dark Killer on the medium tires, so he's definitely going to be a threat going into this race, because he's in the top 10 on the harder compounder tire, which means he can go longer than the rest of us who are in the top 10. So as we move on to the actual race strategy now, and initially I wanted to do a soft medium soft run, but we decided to go with a soft medium medium because I felt as if we'd be a little bit better on the medium compound of tires with the way that we were driving. So I wanted to try and get off the softs as soon as we can, so that's what we decided to go with. And then moving on to the start of the race now, we've got 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights, and lights out, and away we go for the final time in WOR Season 9, and we get a pretty decent start. We had to go on the outside of LGS, which compromised our run going into turn 1, and we get squeezed off of the track from Harv and Dark Killer, so we've now lost 2 positions, and I wanted to try and get past Dark Killer as soon as we possibly could, because as I said before, he's on the medium compound of tire, which means that if we stay behind him, it's really going to cost us moving on into the race, because obviously the medium tires are going to start coming into their own, whereas the soft tires are going to start dying pretty quickly. As you guys know, Abu Dhabi is in the desert, which means it's quite hot over there, which also affects your tire temperatures and means that the tires are going to wear out a little bit quicker. This track isn't really that friendly on the tire wear, as we take a little bit of a look there just to try and set Dark Killer offline, but clearly he wasn't phased by that. He probably didn't even see the proximity arrow or whatever of me coming towards him. He gets a pretty good exit going off of this chicane, and we're now half a second behind him going into sector 3, and sector 3 was my weakest sector. So at this point I wanted to just try and use the fact that everyone was still piled up to get as close as I possibly could to Dark Killer, so that we could either overtake him on the start finish line straight, or wait until that long straight going into sector 2 to really meet the overtake, because as I said, I want to be ahead of him when my tires start to die off in a few laps time, or else he's just going to be able to shoot off and I'm not really going to be able to keep up with him. So as we come up to the final couple of corners on lap 1 now, you can see we're still 5 tenths behind. And at this point I was thinking to myself, okay, maybe this is going to be a little bit of a struggle as a VSC comes out. And once that VSC goes in, you can see we're still quite a way back. We didn't really get the best of restarts off of that VSC. But since there was a heavy braking zone coming up, I just decided to brake as late as I can to make up as much time as we can. And we get a pretty nice run through that chicane. Not going wide, it's very easy to go wide and get a warning coming off of that chicane, especially if you cut the final corner. It can really spit you out if you take it wrong. So luckily we didn't there. And coming into the final sector now, we're actually almost a second down, so we really need to push. As you can see, we ended up getting a warning because I'm just trying to push to stay within that DRS, because we're using a pretty high downforce setup for this race. And I knew that DRS was going to be very, very important. If we lost DRS to Dark Killer, it was definitely going to be detrimental to our race, especially since we've got Callum behind us on the medium tyres as well, who's also going to be a threat, since the medium tyres are slowly going to start coming into their own in the next coming laps. So as we come off of the final corner, we managed to just about keep within the DRS of Dark Killer, so I was happy about that. As long as we can stay as close to him as possible, then that's good. And then moving on to lap 5 now, you can see we managed to stay in the DRS, but Dark Killer is now on the quicker compound of tyre in my opinion, so he's going to be on the attack. That's exactly what he does, going on the outside of Harv's. As you can see, he makes the overtake happen, and at this point in the race I knew I wanted to pit. On the soft medium strategy, you do want to pit a little bit earlier than you can take these tyres. I believe these tyres can go to about lap 7, lap 8 I believe, but we decided to go for the undercut and just pit on lap 5 so that we can be on the medium tyres as soon as possible, because I did feel that the medium tyres were probably going to be the better tyre for us going into the rest of the race. So I wasn't exactly sure if Harv was going to go into the pit, so let's see if he decides to do that. And as you can see, he goes wide, so I definitely knew at this point he's not going into the pits. So I dive into the pits to try and get the biggest undercut that we can on him. I thought that maybe he was going to cover it as soon as possible, so that's why we decided to just try and push into there. And as you can see, we decided to go down to 3 wing. I thought that having that little bit of extra straight line speed was really going to help us going into this, but sadly it didn't in hindsight, and this is where things started to grow wrong for us. So let's see how much of an undercut we ended up getting on Harv's a couple of laps later. He didn't actually end up covering the undercut, so I was quite surprised by that. And going into the end of lap 7, beginning of lap 8 now, you can see that's when Harv decided to pit. And we get quite a big undercut on him, so I'm not sure if maybe he had some damage. That's what my engineer Chili thought, that maybe he had some damage. But yeah, we ended up getting a big undercut on him, and I was pretty happy about that, because it means that we didn't really need to deal with him at this moment of time. We can really just focus on the people ahead of us, especially those medium runners who are still on those set of tyres. And at the start of the medium stint, it was pretty good. The car felt okay, but we ended up getting a safety car, and it's very difficult to burn fuel under a safety car. And I think that's what caused the majority of the issues in this race. We had so much fuel, the car felt very understeery with 3 front wing, and after the safety car we really struggled. As you can see, moving on to lap 16 now, we are 1.6 seconds behind Fury. We have a penalty as well, and we've now got LGS going on the inside looking for a move. And at the end of this season, me and LGS just always seem to be on the same part of the track at some point during the race. I don't know what it is, but we always seem to be around about the same place, which I thought was pretty funny. As you can see now, Harv is looking to go on the outside to try and overtake us as well. Harv actually managed to build all of that time back during the safety car, and now he's looking for the move. And then moving into sector 3, again, it's my weakest sector, and that's with 4 front wing, which is what I was using for this race. So considering that we were on 3 front wing and we were really struggling with understeer, sector 3 was definitely going to be a big struggle. And you can see that because even though LGS ahead of us is locking up and he's going wide, he's still making about a 1/10 of a second per corner on us. That's just how slow we were going because of the understeer and the heaviness of the car. So it was a big struggle at this point of time, and it was really something that was annoying me. I wish in hindsight that I didn't go on 3 front wing. I wish I had stayed on 4, because at least it would have given us that ability to be able to attack the corners during sector 3. And as we move on to lap 17 now, you can see that Harv's ended up overtaking us finally, and it just showed how much we were struggling, because we've already lost about a couple of seconds to LGS, which is a big shame on our part. And then moving on to lap 19, I decided to go into the pits because I wanted to at least change my front wing back to 4 and maybe go back on the soft tires and see if we can maybe make the soft tires work. So I thought that everyone else was going to pit anyway, so why not just go into the pits early and see if we can get a huge undercut on everyone else. So going into the pits now, let's see exactly how big of an undercut we got. And yeah, moving on to lap 26, you can see nobody else actually pitted. Everybody went for the one-stop strategy. The safety car allowed everyone to go for that one-stop strategy, and I was just left in the dust really. There's not really much else to say as we make the move on Constant Ryan, who was on the mediums, so that was obviously going to be a given considering we're on the softs. But other than that, everybody else ahead of us did not pit for a second time, so we were now a pit stop behind everybody else. And as we move on to the final corner actually, Days Rhombus end up winning the final race, and we finished on track in P7, but we ended up getting 6 seconds of penalties and we ended up finishing in P8. So this race really didn't go to plan. I was hoping to get a much better result than that, so I was pretty disappointed to end WOR on a pretty sour note in terms of my own performance. But at the same time, I was pretty happy that I managed to actually complete a season, because this was my very first full season of league racing. So other than the fact that we completed a full season, it's not really been that great. It's definitely been a learning curve for me. I've learned quite a lot. I learned where I stand in terms of pace, so I really want to try and improve that moving forward. And hopefully, if we do decide to do WOR again, if we stay on Xbox, then I can hopefully showcase that improvement that I'm hopefully going to be able to make over the next coming weeks, over the next coming months. So moving on from this, what am I going to be doing? Well, I'm going to try and join another league, just try and get myself into racing a little bit more so I can make some more content for you guys as well. And I'm also going to be doing Shazoo social races, so if you want to stay tuned for that, then make sure to follow me on Twitch. I will be streaming that on Sunday, so if you want to get more details on that, then definitely follow me on Twitter and follow me on Twitch. And if you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button and stick around by subscribing to the channel if you're new and you haven't subscribed yet, and I'll see you guys in my next video.